On today's show, the Capitals end their four-game winning streak as they fall in OT to the San Jose Sharks.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about how all good things must come to an end as the Capitals end their 4-game winning streaks in OT to the San Jose Sharks. What happened? Well, the big thing is the Capitals, penalties. They were guilty of sloppy play. This is not the same team that won 4 games in a row. And I think I choose to look at this game as a bit of a blip, not a change in direction from this team. Ultimately, what went wrong in this game, I'll talk about that a little bit later. I'll drill down a little bit more specifically on the struggles that the Caps faced in this game, but also looking ahead and some standout performances in the game despite the loss. But just to get it going here, of course, I was hoping to do a podcast and to talk to you all about another win. The Capitals keep rolling because on paper they should. I mean, the San Jose Sharks are in the progress, of being a better team. Again, like I talked about off the top, they are not the same team that we remember from a couple years ago. Some big name players, most notably Macklin Celebrini, these kind of players that are on the team that I think this team will be one to be reckoned with in years to come. But I don't necessarily think that it was about the San Jose Sharks playing it that well. I just think it has more to do with the fact that the Capitals didn't have a great game. And sometimes that's just it. Sometimes, you can look at it, and I think that the doomsday people out there are going to say this team has fallen apart. They lost this big game. Listen, they picked up a point. It went to OT. All hope is not lost. But, Spencer Carbery, the head coach of the Capitals, he didn't mince words. He was very frustrated about the game, calling it the team's performance, quote, extremely disappointing, unquote. And watching the game, I would say that was the case. A bit of a low-scoring affair, and you really started to see the wheels start to wobble later in the game. And one of the things that has been kind of the MO of this team is that even though they lose the lead, they find a way to rally back and win games. That was something that was broke tonight as well, is this team did not have that same pushback that we have seen in the last handful, up to 10 games, shall we say. So I think that the Capitals have some time to clean up the play before they take on the Maple Leafs this weekend, because I'm here to tell you that's not going to be an easier game either. That is going to be much more difficult as the Maple Leafs are playing very well this year. And, what's interesting about the Capitals is that sometimes they can rise to the occasion. So maybe when they take on the Maple Leafs, they'll turn it around. Tonight was not the case. There was a lot of slop, which was apparent. Now, while the overtime loss did earn the Capitals a point, there were definitely some red flags that we need to address. And I think it's important to be an accurate assessor of the team. I know Spencer Carbery holds himself accountable, along with his assistants and his players. There is definitely some things that need to get cleaned up. And some of the things that Spencer Carbery noticed pointed out some major issues with puck control and passing. And I think that had some to do with the Capitals. I think it also had to do with the systems that the San Jose Sharks were implementing. But he said it clearly, quote, "Our puck play was obviously horrendous. We couldn't string together passes. You saw the execution," unquote. So I think that, he was facing a coach that he was familiar with, and I think that he really wanted to win this game. I think that Spencer Carbery wants to win all of these games, but I think that tonight he was really hoping for a big win. And, the team was trending in the right direction, picking up some big wins. That was a big win playing through Florida there, the Devils, the Islanders, again, at the end of the day, they're speed bumps, and I don't want to look into it much more than that. But taking a look at the game tonight, just the roadmap, what went wrong, the lack of structure was the big thing that led to some dangerous plays. And ultimately, that team has the firepower, and they also capitalized on some errors on the Capitals' part, including breakaways and odd man rushes. In his own words, the final moments of the game were like a total fire drill, quote unquote. You could feel the chaos on the ice. And I think that that was a bit of a fight or flight for the Capitals, that they really saw the Sharks taking it to them, and I think they got pretty comfortable winning. So I think there was a little bit of panic in the second and third period. Now, let's talk about how the game unfolded in general. The Caps started off strong in the first period, but as you take a look at the Sharks, they struck first, and oftentimes the Capitals, they struggle when the opposing team strikes first. Was no different in the game tonight with a goal from Tyler Toffoli. And that's what I'm talking about. Some key big additions on this team that have definitely taken this team to the next level. It's that, plus the veterans on the team, plus a lot of the young talent. That is ultimately why they're playing that much better. Now, you take a look at it. The Capitals did not lay over and play dead. Luckily, Nic Dowd brought the Capitals back into the game with a goal in the second period. So there was some of that pushback, but just not enough tying it up at one. But the big thing, as the game moved on, it felt like the Caps were stuck on defense in the defensive zone, and they should have really been putting it in the offensive zone and capitalizing on what they do well, those greasy goals, driving for the net, the things that have made the Capitals so successful this year. It wasn't the case this evening, struggling to keep up as the Sharks took control. The Sharks could sense the blood in the water, if you will, and ultimately took advantage of the Capitals. But a key moment in the game, late in the game, when Tom Wilson received a double minor penalty for a high hit on Macklin Celebrini. And I think that as far as Tom Wilson is concerned, I think that was frustration boiling over, and it didn't do the Capitals any favors. And ultimately, that is why I'm talking about a Capitals loss instead of a Capitals win. The penalty proved costly as William Eklund capitalized on the extended power play, scoring the game winner in OT. And that was one of those agony of defeat moments that we remember as kids, or if you were alive when the skier fell down the ski jump, and on ABC's Wide World of Sports, the agony of defeat. That was what was running through my head this evening when the Capitals lost. That is, you were right there. You let your emotions boil over. Tom Wilson, I'm looking at you kind of in particular here, not exclusively, but that is ultimately why the Capitals lost this game. They just let their emotions get too involved, and some poor play was evident on the ice. The loss tonight, like I said, snapped a 4-game winning streak during which the Capitals had been lighting it up with at least 4 goals in each game. So a tough loss for the Capitals, and the players themselves, they were not too happy with the performance as well. As you can imagine, Connor McMichael mentioned something important post-game. He expressed concern, quote, that the team may have fallen into a pattern of overpassing and trying to make things too elaborate on offense, unquote. And, if you take a look at it, I think that that is what the Capitals were guilty of last year, was overpassing, that when you have the opportunity, shoot the puck. And, Connor McMichael, that is what he has done very well this year, is drive for the net. PLD, Tom Wilson, some player of that nature, shoots him the puck, and the Capitals score a goal. Again, this is not the wheels falling off the team. This was a loss in a game that the Capitals could have won. They just didn't get it done. Now, unfortunately, that resulted in missed opportunities to score against Sharks goaltender Mackenzie Blackwood, who was also very dialed in this game. And that's one of the things that has been the Achilles heel of the Sharks for the last couple of seasons is the net minding. I think they have it dialed in, and that is ultimately why they're in a better position than they have been in the past. But looking ahead, the Caps are preparing to regroup and will hit the ice for practice on Wednesday. And you better believe that Spencer Carbery is going to shake things up again. I wouldn't be surprised to see some lines mixed up, perhaps some D pairings. That has been kind of the MO of Spencer Carbery this year. That didn't work. We're going to really mix things up as we have seen him do throughout this season. But all things considered, I'm just kind of, I'm going to be an optimist in this situation and look at it as a glass half full and say, it was a one-off. All things considered, the Capitals are playing very well. Now, if they go on and lose 4 games here, then my opinion on the whole thing will have changed. But right now, I don't think that the sky is falling. I think that it is ultimately just a bump in the road. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about the struggles in the game. I know it's not fun. I don't like to talk to you guys about struggles, but there were struggles in this game. What do they need to clean up? I'll discuss next. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. And listen, there is a lot of football that's played on any given Sunday or Monday or Thursday. And some of those games you're into and some of them you're not. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page. Where do you place your bets? Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team. Every day you can find me over on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And I want to thank you for making Locked On Capitals your first listen of the day. So talking here, ruminating about the Capitals and them breaking their 4-game winning streak. And again, people like to jump to conclusions on social media. People like, oh my God, this team looked horrible. Let's talk about that struggle and why do people think they played horrible? Power play struggles, special teams, something that has been working well for the Capitals as of late. Yes, I'm even talking about the power play, something that was not so good to start the season, but seemed like they had pretty dialed in. Not the case tonight. Leading up to this game, we were all buzzing about the Capitals' power play, which had been impressive. I think we all, are acknowledging the change, scoring in 5 straight games and finding the back of the net during 8 of the last 9 matches. That's pretty good. That is a good power play. Not tonight, even without Alex Ovechkin. There's always that caveat, that asterisk without Ovechkin. Unfortunately, the Sharks managed to stifle that momentum. Again, the theme of this podcast is all good things must come to an end as the Caps went 0 for 3 on power play opportunities. Now, if you are an everydayer of the show, I talk about that special teams and that as we get later in the season, those things will become more glaringly apparent. Special teams, the power play, how much better would the Capitals have played? And ultimately, would the Capitals have won the game had they made good on some of those power play opportunities? Well, yeah, they would have. So that's what I'm talking about. And as we can move along even further in the season, when the games even have more impact based on standings and there not being as much runway, you need to make the most of your opportunities. Again, I'm not jumping off a cliff here thinking that the power play is shot. We've seen how they've played here as of late. It just needs to get turned around. They need to refresh. I think that, yeah, they are going to have a practice on Wednesday. I wouldn't be so opposed to just pushing a reset, let them kind of just reset their brain. That's not going to be the case. I think that Spencer Carbery and the assistants and the coaches there will get this thing all squared away. Again, power play goal or two tonight would have been a game changer. A significant blow was Jacob Chikrin's slashing penalty, which cut one of those chances short and hampered the Capitals' offensive traction. Again, it was a game like that. I saw that with Wilson. I saw that with Chychrun, that they were making uncharacteristic mistakes that I have not seen this year. Of course, this is Chychrun's first year with the Capitals, but I'm talking Tom Wilson. I'm talking about the collective of the Capitals, that they made some uncharacteristic errors that I thought they had cleaned up, but was definitely not the case tonight. So, also, period challenges in the second period is where things started to fall apart. The Caps faced challenges spending too much time in their own zone. Again, I think it's a systems things based on how San Jose is structured. Although we outshot the Sharks 9-7 in that period, it felt like we were more focused on back checking than creating scoring opportunities. And that's what it's all about, scoring goals, getting back to what got you here in the first place. Before the game, second place in the Metro Division. Not too long ago, first in the Eastern, all together. So you take a look at it. That is what I'm hoping for. I'm really hoping that it is just a blip on the radar. And again, this is still the team getting it done without Alex Ovechkin. So do the people say we need Alex Ovechkin back tomorrow? We do, but this team has weathered the storm without him. I just think they need to clean up certain things. Now, fortunately, Nic Dowd brought the energy and scored an equalizer after a well-placed pass from Martin Feravari following an offensive zone faceoff. The fourth line, which has been huge for the Capitals, led by Dowd, was all buzzing all night, but the Capitals struggled to beat Mackenzie Blackwood. That is the theme, that it was just the making of a perfect storm for the Sharks. They took advantage of sloppy play by the Capitals. They took advantage of having really a great netminder in net in the form of Mackenzie Blackwood. That's why they won the game. I don't think we really need to overlook it or overthink it that much. I just think that they capitalized on the Capitals' misfortunes and the mistakes that they made. So all things considered, again, I'm not going to say that it's all doom and gloom. Was a rough game. Even though a low-scoring event, the Capitals could definitely have walked away from this game in the win column. They didn't do it. Brush the shoulders off, move on to the next one. That is all we can really do. All right, so coming up here after the break, I know I have been talking to you about a lot of negativity in the game tonight. There's been some positivity, and what lies ahead for the Capitals, I'll discuss straight ahead. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in place even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineups live. Sign up today and you'll get started with $50 instantly when you play. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's get $50 instantly when you play $5 when you use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team. Every day talking to you about some Capitals hockey as I record this. Well, it is about to turn midnight here, and staying up and hoping I was able to come to you guys with some great news that the Capitals won. Not the case. And in the first two segments, I kind of hit you over the head with some negativity. Let's talk about the good things that happened in the game. There wasn't a lot, but there was some, and what lies ahead for this team. So one of the players that has really stood out is Ivan Miroshnichenko. And I think that, the hope was that he was going to be a top six forward, but, is flourishing and playing rather well on the fourth line and has been key to that fourth line success. As we know, Nic Dowd has been a key player on that line as well as Duhaime. And, I think that with Miroshnichenko on this team, I think that at some point here, it's just going to be he's not going to get sent back down to Hershey. He has been a constant contributor. He has been responsible for being a shutdown line to shut down some of the best lines in the NHL. And I think he's learned a lot from playing with the likes of Duhaime and Dowd, these kind of players. So, but tonight, as he was impressive, as he continues to be impressive with a run of points in 3 consecutive games, making a name for himself. This is a guy that has overcome adversity at every stop along the way. The lymphoma, that went into remission, putting all the weight back on, hitting the gym, getting in top form, terminating his KHL contract, joining the Hershey Bears, and helping the Hershey Bears win the Calder Cup, gets an opportunity on the Capitals and has made the most of it. The hard part, of course, is, once Alex Ovechkin comes back, who is going to come out of the lineup? And, the hunch there is that it very well could be Miroshnichenko. So a tough break for him. And I think that if he can continue doing what he does, he's going to make it very difficult on Spencer Carbery and his assistants and Chris Patrick and all the people making the decision here about what to do with him. But right now, I think that all he can continue to do is keep playing some great hockey. Now, however, in the third period, the Sharks cranked up the pressure, despite what Miroshnichenko was able to do, outshooting the Caps 12-4 and generating quality chances. Thankfully, Thompson was there. And, you take a look at it. We were talking about in this game how great Mackenzie Blackwood played, but also that despite the score, that Logan Thompson kept the Capitals in this game. It wasn't a blowout. This wasn't a 6-1 loss. This was a loss by a small margin, and that is due in large part to Logan Thompson. So I don't want, that to get lost in all of this as well, is that, Logan Thompson was horrible. The Capitals team as a collective was horrible. A one bad game. That was it. So what is next for the Capitals? As I'm all ready to talk about the next game, as the Capitals have practice on Wednesday. And of course, I will have you guys covered on Locked On Capitals on what shakes out. Again, I would expect some changes on the line, maybe some changes on the power play, these kind of things that get them back the Capitals in the winning business. And it's interesting that it's only one game, but Spencer Carbery is not the head coach that is just going to ride things out. We saw the first game of the season. I always recall back to that. That was the start of the season was a loss, and he totally shook things up. I expect something similar, perhaps, before the Capitals take on the Maple Leafs. So a tough break for the Capitals, but as we take a look at it, the Caps play the Maple Leafs on Friday, the Canadiens on Saturday, and then not a game until Thursday against the Blue Jackets. So it's all ultimately about making the most of your opportunities, and on deck is the Toronto Maple Leafs, a good Maple Leafs team that, like I said, this is not going to be an easy game for the Capitals, but if there's one thing I've noticed about this year's team is they play very well against a formidable opponent. The Toronto Maple Leafs will be just that. Let's hope the Capitals can rally and just turn this thing around. Like I've talked about in the show, this isn't 4 losses in a row. This was one loss coming off 4 big wins, and the Capitals, taking a look at the standings, are in a good position. Now, again, they can't rest on their laurels. The Devils, the Carolina Hurricanes, and the dumpster fire that is the New York Rangers, they need to batten down the hatches, clean it up. The one thing I feel good about is Spencer Carbery is the guy to get that done. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals and making it your first listen of the day. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On NHL, where they talk about hockey 5 days a week. You can find that wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.